this was interesting. Not interesting, but look, we always talk about what are we missing here? What are we missing? And maybe we're not missing anything, to be quite frank with you. Maybe we're just having a hard time wrapping our head around the fact that the Lions are a good football team. But so on Colin Cowherd's show, The Herd, he had a guest on, a senior writer for The Athletic who covers the Raiders. His name is Vic Tafur. And he talked about his best bets of the NFL season. One of them, I'm going to give a quote to you. Is Detroit getting too much hype? Cowherd posed the direct question. You have the Lions under. First of all, they're a fun story. They've been bad forever. It's fun. I think there is an implosion potential here. Why do you have them under? And, he just, kind of went on and on about how, here's another quote. Last year they had such a great run. I just think that there has to be a little bit of a regression this year. It's a tough schedule. I think a small regression is not going to be too surprising. But a small regression is... They won 9 games last year.
So
a regression is 8.
Yeah.
Or even
9. Yeah.
Which would be a very disappointing year, I think, for the Detroit Lions.
For sure.
And I would either say Dan Campbell didn't do his job or Jared Goff got hurt. Those are the only 2 reasons I can.
Or last year, like I said, they just peaked perfectly. That's it. Last year, I'm telling you, they would have won at least 1 playoff game, maybe 2. That's how good they were playing. To play that good again, you got to start it all over again and hope you get the same chemistry going forward. You got a bunch of new players on this team. We'll see where it goes. I still say, what do I always say about Vegas, right? You make fun of it. If it's 9.5, what are the numbers?
8, 9, or 10.
That's it.
The way I look at it is this. Now, we talked about that. I talked about, as I always do, the 2007 Cleveland Browns team. We went from poop to sugar. We won 10 games, 7 out of 8 at home, 10-6 Pro Bowlers galore, blah, blah, blah. Next year, we weren't anything to write home about, and they weren't for a very long time until Baker Mayfield finally won a playoff game. But when you look at it, this is the reason why he may not be wrong. He may not. I don't think he's right, but he may not be wrong. It's a tough schedule. Like, there are some. You start off the season right out the gate. You got the Kansas City Chiefs right out the gate Thursday night. This is a tone setter. What if you go out there and get your ass whooped? What if you go out there and you don't feel exactly like you thought you would? What if you go out there and you have this moment where you're like, oh, shoot. What if that leads into now you play Seattle? Last time I checked, Seattle's a much better team this year. They got better in the offseason, just like the Detroit Lions got better in the offseason. Didn't Seattle beat the Detroit Lions last year? And then the Lions get better, but so does Detroit. You go through the rest of the schedule, there are some games in here which you're playing against some good opponents. Also, you got to go out there and recreate what you did last year, like Matt said. Like, just because you did it last year, you look at when they got hot. They got hot last 10 games. A lot of that team, them last 6 games, a lot of guys are just going through the motions. They're already booked for Cancun. Cancun on 3. They're out of here. They know they're not in the playoffs. A lot of these teams, I mean, you look at them, so the way let me slow it back down. Yes, it can happen. The reason why it can happen because you got to go out there and you got to do it all over again. Did the Lions improve the middle of their defense and that defensive line? Did they improve it enough? Are the picks that they pick, are they going to be able to implement them the way they want to? Jahmyr Gibbs and his offensive scheme, are they going to be able to implement him? Is Jack Campbell going to be the linebacker that that the Detroit Lions hope he's going to be? Is Brian Brant's going to be that player that we think he's going to be in the secondary? Is Jameson Williams going to have enough maturity that in his 6-game suspension, is he going to be dialed in? Is he going to be on it? Is he going to be ready to go when he comes back week 7? There are legit question marks.
Ragnow's toe.
Look how good Jared Goff did. Jared Goff threw 4 interceptions last year. I'll say it again. Jared Goff only had 4 interceptions last year. Will he have 4 this year? Will it be 14?
Will it be 8? Right. Will it double that?
Exactly.
Fumbles as well. He didn't fumble last year.
Exactly. His hands weren't that small last year.
Yep.
That was Kenny Pickett took over the small hands thing. So there are a lot of things where it's like, look, S can happen. Things can happen. I don't think it will, but it's not. People shouldn't get mad that he has that opinion because it's a real thing. It could happen.
And the other teams in that division, they're looking at the Lions saying, the Lions?
That's the favorite?
What, are you kidding? The Lions are the favorite? We won 13 games last year. How about the Packers? We got a good quarterback here that no one knows about. We're going to be fine. Our defense is terrific. Look at the Bears.
Yeah.
Justin Fields.
Yeah.
He's going to really take the next step and be a terrific quarterback.
And Maz, didn't Justin Fields, didn't he score 33 on the Lions and almost win
I
last
thought
year
he did.
in December?
I thought he did.
Oh, yeah,
If it
exactly.
wasn't for a late interception by Jeff Okudah, we won't win that game.
Yeah, it's a real deal, and I think that's the other thing that you just pointed out, Maz and Ryan, is it's the emphasis on the Detroit Lions. I think that's another thing. Teams are going to be keying in on the Detroit Lions. Usually you play the Lions. I told you how it is. I played against the Lions. I know how it is. I may not read all the scouting report. Like, I may not watch all the cut-up tapes at home. I may not be really doing extra because I know it's the Detroit Lions, or you're playing against the Cleveland Browns. Now, it's not going to be that way. Teams are legitimately scouting from now to get ready to play the Detroit Lions. When they come into that, you're going to see the energy change from the snap in the first quarter. It's going to be much different than it usually is playing Detroit Lions. You're going to see that intensity. Are you ready for that? Are the Lions ready to match that intensity from first quarter to fourth quarter? Or because you're no longer going to be sneaking these fourth quarter wins because you're still hanging around, and teams like, oh, shoot, they're still here. It's not going to be like that because they're waiting for you.
Let me just say that I don't think this is going to happen.
Yeah.
I think that the Lions are going to win the division. I think they are going to win 12 or 13 games this year. I think they're going to compete for a number 1 overall seed. And I think they're going to win at least one playoff game. That, to me, is where I have this football team. Now, am I crazy? Perhaps. Is this guy crazy? Maybe. But if this guy does turn out to be right, you know, aside from injury, a major injury, a catastrophic injury, I don't think it happens. But if it did, you know, could there be a situation where, you know, the good old quote, the press clippings? Are you reading your own press clippings? Back in the day, people would clip up, get the newspaper, and clip out a newspaper article and put it on a bulletin board. These days, you just start scrolling in your phone. You could read great things about yourself for hours and hours and hours and hours. If you believe that hype, if you believe that the Detroit Lions won the Super Bowl last year, you're sitting there, I don't even want to throw a name out there, but you're Braylon Edwards on the team, and Braylon Edwards, you're so great out there at wide receiver, you don't need to put all that extra work in anymore like you did a year ago. Then maybe. But I don't think this culture, and I don't want to use that word, overuse that word, but I don't think the culture allows for these players to read press clippings anymore or scroll through your phone and read all that stuff that's great about you.
Here's the one thing that I will say. Here's the one thing in terms of how this could happen. Is you said something, Ryan. You said coaching. You said it could be coaching, and you're absolutely right. And the reason why is this: when you look at the schedule, last year, who did the Lions really beat that had you like, man, they beat them? There were some almost wins that you were like, man, they almost beat the Buffalo Bills.
Cowboys.
Man, they almost got the Cowboys, but they didn't get those teams. Those are the teams that are going to the conference finals. Those are the teams that are right there. Look at the teams you got to play. You got a lot of $200+ million quarterbacks on that schedule this year. You got Patrick Mahomes, game 1. $200 million quarterback. Geno, most efficient quarterback last year. You got Lamar Jackson, who's happily paid now this year. You got some young guys on this team. How are those guys going to react when they're looking at Lamar, when they're looking across from Lamar Jackson? How are those guys going to react? I mean, you look at Justin Herbert. You got to go out there and play Justin Herbert. Last time I checked, Justin Herbert is still a guy that had 5,000. In California. That's what I'm saying. You look at the Broncos. Who knows what that's going to be? This is still the NFL, and before you do it, you got to do it consistently, and they haven't beat anybody, and they haven't done it consistently. So that's the other thing. This is really going to test Dan Campbell this year, I believe.
That athletic reporter has one thing going for him. History.
Yeah.
The Lions have done nothing.
And that's what a lot of people are pointing to. But again, I think you've got to take the team for what it's worth.
Yeah.
You've got to look at it with a reasonable set of eyes and say, who are these guys? Are these guys good or not?
We know the team better than any national guy knows.
I totally agree with you.
And at the end of the day, I think we're all just saying that this could be a deal. I could see how he could print this, whatever. But I still think the Detroit Lions are going over 9.5, and they're going to win the division. I still agree with that.